Welcome. Streams of Light podcast. Streaming live from San Juan Capistrano. Beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Happy to be here. Happy to be alive, healthy. So much gratitude. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got it going on 4 platforms. If you're watching on YouTube Live, then subscribe to the channel and send out a like and a chat just to help us trend on YouTube Live. Facebook Live, like the Streams of Light podcast page and send me a comment as well. And Twitch and Twitter, streaming live as well. Hey, today is a great day. Actually, every day is a great day. It's just how you look at it, right? Yeah, I'm stoked. One of my friends has a podcast and he says, "Yeah, guy." I kind of like that. I want to steal that, but I don't want to steal his originality. Thanks again for joining me. Chris Anthony here on Streams of Light. So today, I felt inspired to talk about what does it mean to become a healer? How do you become a healer? That is a wonderful subject for a time such as this, but not just because of what we've been going through the last couple of years. It's just because so many people are seeking healing. So many people are seeking to be well and to be doing good in their life in all respects, emotionally, physically. There's such a need out there. And so I wanted to deal with this great subject because I feel very thankful for what I've received in my life. I do have a healing outlet practice in my own life. I do energy work, but I realized a long time ago that healing was, I don't know, a little bit different. I started to see it in a different light. And then I also saw the simplicity and the ease of getting into that flow. And that's kind of what I wanted to share with everyone today is, first of all, what is healing? If you only think of healing as maybe a faith healer pulling some guy out of a wheelchair, if that's all it is to you, this podcast may not be for you. We'll talk about more dramatic, miraculous type healings. But I want to talk about like healing 101. Like for the person who has a empathic sort of personality, who knows that in many situations in life, they've been kind of walked, sort of walked into these situations where they knew that something needed to happen and it was going to happen through them. This podcast is for you because healing, in my opinion, can be very subtle and very small at the start. I look at healing, the whole overall process of what it means to see what healing needs to be done and to move into that and to be part of that healing. I see it as a very organic process. And this is very typical of so many things in life. You take a small little seed, you plant it in the ground, and 100 years later, that seed is a massive tree that houses birds and squirrels and gives shade to any human who wants to sit under it, cat or dog or whatever. Healing is like that. It's like an organic process that in the beginning, you can start small. As a matter of fact, that's the idea. You're following nature's path. Just like a seed has to sprout and come out through the soil and be watered and nurtured and grow over time. That's the way the process of becoming a healer really is. But the cool thing is you can get started today, tomorrow. And it's not that hard to get started. Let me talk about how healing could be a small thing in the beginning and how you get started. For example, you might go into a public place. Let's say you go into your morning coffee shop. And when you go into that place, if you go in with the attitude of, I am here to be of any service I can. If you go into that coffee shop with your eyes wide open, your heart open, your ears open, and some of it, let's be honest, healing can be as simple as listening to someone share their dilemma, their life story. How many of us have seen a movie where a psychologist has a patient come in, they lay on the couch and they talk nonstop for half an hour. They get up and say, thank you so much. I feel so much better. And then they leave. And the psychologist is like, I didn't do anything. I just listened. Listening is square one of healing because people just need to be heard, get things off their chest. But what you're going to find in the process of listening is, and this is really important, you will find out where that person is at. It's so important as a healer, as someone who's delving into the healing arts, before you get too deep into any type of modality. We'll talk about different modalities later. Before you get too deep into any modality, it's really important that you focus on your own conscious awakening. Your own conscious awakening. That is so important because as people start to open up to you, and you will find, you will get, once this starts to happen, you will start to get tapped by the universe, by source, by God, by spirit, by everlasting love and mercy. You will be tapped on the shoulder. Now is the time. So if you listen, you will begin to see where people are, but you have to be sort of awake yourself. You have to sort of know thyself, or physician, heal thyself, in order that you might understand where other people are at and know what the path upward is for them. And you can't really heal someone else if you haven't experienced the power of healing in your own life. So I said you have to be consciously awake. How do you awake? That's the big question. I mean, I really feel like society is going through a great awakening, a great ascension now. I think so many things are behind that, like technology and just the times that we're in. And there's so much pushing us upward and onward. But to be at your best, to be consciously awake, you need to create your own personal sacred space, if you will, a spiritual practice. Something that it's not going to make you better than other people, but it's going to awaken you, which essentially makes you more alive in the moment, more aware of the moment, more open to see the signs that might come to you when someone is opening up to you and sharing. So you create your own personal sacred space. I do that every day. There's different ways you can do it. We all have different traditions. We're all part of different cultures and even faith families. But what I've found is you just go with what you're in now. Unless you feel a very strong nudging to move on from the spiritual place you find yourself in, i.e. it's unhealthy, it's pulling you down more than it's lifting you up. You dread seeing your friends who are involved in that spiritual group. Unless it's something like that, you should just stay in the spiritual group that you find yourself in and follow the wisdom of those traditions. Now, for me, one of the things I do to create my sacred space is I like to do a morning reflection before I even start a meditation or any exercise or anything like that. I like to light some sort of scented sage, or one of my favorites is frankincense and myrrh incense. That's a great way to start the day for me. But I like to take that moment and draw a circle around my sacred space. It doesn't have to be a literal circle, although you could do that. You could have, I do recommend a room or an area where you practice your spiritual practice. And certainly you might want to encircle that area with your fragrant incense. But the main thing is to create the sacred space by intention, right? The incense and all that is just something to do. It's just sort of a vehicle to get where you're going. But where you're going is intention and reverential awe and just really gratitude and creating that space. So you create your sacred space. You practice your spiritual practice. For me, I practice the yoga asanas. I practice meditation. These are the things that equalize my body, my being, my mind, in order that I can actually have something to offer, not just to myself, but to those around me. So you create that sacred space. You practice your spiritual practice. And then this is the most important thing. You put away tribalism. I only say that because in this day and age, We are awakening as a collective, as a spiritual collective. We're awakening to this thing called tribalism. What is tribalism? It's the old ways. It's kind of like that old time religion where if you weren't in with us, you're out, right? What the heck is it with that? Every spiritual teacher I ever saw teach always was very inclusive, including the one who's quoted the most to be exclusive, the Christ. But inclusivity is so important, acceptance and love. And that's why I think the Christ went out of his way to heal people outside of the Jewish club at the day. And he quoted scriptures from people who were outsiders, who were involved in the power and the workings of the universe and God. So it's very important to put away tribalism, i.e. my way is better than your way. It's not going to fly. That does not promote humility. That promotes spiritual pride. So we want to stay away from spiritual pride, because if we get caught up in spiritual pride, it is sort of an infection that will keep us from seeing what we need to see in the moment, at the moment, wherever we're at. So we create that sacred space. We practice our practice. We stay humble, meek, lowly, humble. And then we realize, this is so key, we realize the principle that is working all around us and within us. This is so important when it comes to healing. We really, really benefit from knowing and understanding that, first of all, our bodies are set up for healing. This principle is within us and it's all around us. You chop off a branch on a tree, you basically prune it. What happens? It comes back even stronger. Your body gets an infection. The body sends out a fever to kill the infection, to purify the blood. This is a process that's working within us and all around us. Once you realize how powerful this is acting in yourself and around you, then you realize it's not so much the idea of, I want to become a healer or I need to learn a certain modality. The realization, the big realization for becoming a healer comes when you realize it's already happening within and around you. And how can I get on the program? That's really the way I look at it. How can I get on the program? So once you realize that, you're already 2 steps ahead of the whole game. Because when someone is in need of help in any shape or form, whether it be emotional healing or some sort of physical healing or something like that, if you know that there's a power, there's an element out there that is working for everyone's good, regardless of race, creed, anything else, then you're not alone. So you're not alone as a healer, and that this principle, I kind of like to think of it as a heavenly parent sort of principle. That's a concept that is taught, and that's a very good way to look at it. That this father or mother principle is working, nurturing, healing. We can work with that. So once you see these tangible results in life of healing, and you start to see that you're becoming at one with that greater process that wants to heal. And again, let's start simple. You go into the coffee shop, you sit down, and someone has their eyes, I'm only saying this because this is kind of stuff that happens. It's happened to me. Someone's eyes are locked on you, and then they come over and they say, I just wanted to say, and whatever. They just need an excuse to break the ice, right? That book you're reading, I read it, or you remind me of my cousin, or gosh, I feel like I know you from somewhere, or whatever it is. And now you're engaged, and now you know the healing principle has tapped you. That's a good feeling. It's really good feeling because you got to know you're not alone. And so it starts with listening. Now, this is the powerful thing that I found out about healing. And this goes back to the sacred space in your own personal awakening. You can't do this part if you're not on the path. You can't do this part if you're not on rapid ascension technique number 234. You must be on your own ascension plan, because when you start listening, you will see what it is that needs to be done. Oftentimes, when people start sharing with you their dilemma, you will see the source of the issue. For example, if I were able to, by some healing modality, bring some sort of resolution to a physical problem that someone was having because I was able to have some sort of collective power over the elements, the big question would be, is it going to come back? Is the ailment going to re-manifest its ugly head, so to speak? That's the big question. Because oftentimes, what leads people down the path of being sick starts with the mind, or starts with certain practices, certain physical practices, right? So many people just overeat and don't eat well, and they just don't know it. They don't know that what they're doing is causing their body harm. But see, you have to be more ascended, not better than them. You just have to realize what works for you doesn't always work for someone else, but oftentimes the basics that you learn in your own ascension process will be able to help other people. I think that's one of the reasons why when the Christ healed people, he would say, okay, now go your way and don't do this anymore. Because he knew that the sickness came about because of certain actions. And that's why you tell them, you got to stop doing this. Otherwise, you'll be back here 6 months from now. So it's very important. It's very important to understand what the cause of the problem is. And that will come to you as you listen. And you will be helped as you listen. You will be given wisdom and insight that transcends sometimes your own experience. And this is the really neat thing. And I hate to just narrow it down to just healing, but we're talking about healing. But this happens in other areas of, how would I call it, in this manifestation of goodness and power. You get insight that is beyond your own personal experience. Why? Because that power is loving. It's like a parent. It wants to bring relief. It's tried to get the message through. And now guess what? You're there, first of all, to be a listener and then a spokesperson. And sometimes that's all you need to do for that moment. See, if we always think of healing as some radical thing where the guy's like, be healed, and pulls some guy out of a wheelchair, if that's all it is, then who's going to do that? And how long is it going to take you to get to that place? Or maybe you don't feel like that's your modality. There's so many other ways to be a great help to other people. So listening, and then that wisdom that comes, and then a lot of times what will come is a prescription. I found this very, very interesting. You will get prescriptions for people because so many of the things that involved in healing relate to, as I said before, I hinted at this, their own life practices. Sometimes these directions that you get will be primarily, they'll be directive, like in the sense of you need to get to a place where you're not, this is easier said than done, right? When you tell someone, hey, you can't worry about that anymore. Have you ever had someone tell that to you? You got to stop doing that. Look, I could talk all about the things that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, but all that information's out there. I mean, real briefly, you know that like when you worry, for example, that it puts your body in this fight and flight mode. You don't breathe properly. You breathe more out of the chest, and all these chemical reactions happen in your body. Another thing that happens that I haven't heard Dr. Joe talk about is that, and this is fascinating, there's something called the NEMF. That is the nonlinear electromagnetic field. We all have them. And for those of you who do energy work, who do Reiki or anything along those lines, we know that there are 7 main wheels of energy, vortexes, if you will, that spin. Did you know that for the most part, this varies based on male and female, and it also varies based on daytime and night. For the most part, those main energy centers spin clockwise. And when they're spinning clockwise, they are pulling energy in. And when you have thoughts of gratitude, positive thoughts, good feelings, things like that, they spin properly. But when you begin to worry and fret and have negative thoughts, they go counterclockwise. And instead of pulling in energy, they expend energy. This might explain why you feel so freaking tired when you worry all day and frazzled. You feel like you don't have much energy. Not only you've been expending it on your energy thoughts, the thoughts that are energy wavelengths coming out of your own mind, your own psyche, but you're actually losing energy because those energy centers have spun the opposite direction and they are not pulling in the energy that they need. So that's a whole another subject. But what you'll find is when you're speaking with people that you will see what the need is. Sometimes you will see the illusion. And that is very important to point out to people. There are illusions. Sometimes it's a personal illusion. Sometimes it's a mass delusion. Have you ever had someone share something like, oh yeah, and then they say something and like, hey, that's a bunch of people believe that? That's not true. I can't say what that is. That's something that you know when you're on the path of ascension. When you're on the path of ascension, for example, I'll give you one example. You learn about Maya. You learn about the physical world, about polarities, and you learn that even though we're all in separate bodies, that we are all, that consciousness that you have within you, the awareness that says, hey, here I am, we relate it to the body. So we think we fall for the mass delusion of Maya. We think, well, that's me and that's him or her over there. That appears to be true because we're in separate bodies. But the one consciousness that's in me that comes out from me, it's the same consciousness that's in the person next to you. That's why the admonition came down from above. Love your neighbor as if it was yourself, because really you're connected. That's why the admonition said, hey, when you help that person over there, you helped me. Thank you very much. So that's just one example. So you will see the illusions and the mass delusions. And so that's why it's so important to be on that ascension path. So you can say, wait a second. And you can help, because a lot of things can be corrected by people thinking right and then living right. But then you will find, and this is where we get into different modalities, you will find at certain times, and this has happened to me. I remember one time I was at a church and there was a kid who had a sprained ankle, and I really, really believed he had a terrible ligament issue. And he was having problems with it, and it seemed like there was nothing he could do to get it working again. And so I stayed with him for a while. And we stayed, I had my hands over those ligaments, and we were waiting and waiting. We were praying. We were asking God for help. We were believing in this good, powerful working for his best possible outcome. And it took a while, but at one point in time, under my hands, I felt the ligaments sort of twitch and snap just a little bit. Fascinating. But that power is there. The miraculous thing, we're going to find out, I think as time goes on, we're going to find out that the miracles of healing are reproducible, and we're going to find out that maybe they weren't as miraculous as we thought. But why do I say that? Because like if you look at guys in the East, like the swamis and the yogis of the East, the one thing that I found out, they said so many things that were so right on before science discovered them. Vivekananda was talking about matter as, energy before Einstein, came out, with all of his theories about this and the quantum world. And so, there's so much that these wise sages have found out. And one of the things that they talk about are the siddhis, and these are the things that naturally happen when you have a certain spiritual practice, like clairvoyance, clairaudience, and all these things. And what really ends up happening in life is these guys pave the way, these adventurous sort of people that sort of plow ahead of us. They plow through the wilderness like with a machete, so to speak, cutting away the trees of misunderstanding and the bushes of unbelief and all these things. And they basically set a path, the path straight before us, where we begin to see that, oh, you know, if you do this, then this will happen. It's actually pretty dang scientific, but we just don't always know how to measure it and to quantify it. So we have a hard time saying it's scientific. Let's think about this for a second. If you took your cell phone, or let's say I took my cell phone and I was able to travel back 1,000 years in time to see my great times 10 grandfather. And I told him who I was. I told him how there was a time machine. And then I said, look, this, and let's just say for the sake of this illustration that somehow I had cell tower use for my mobile, which wouldn't work, right? There would be no cell towers back then. But let's just say in this illustration that I could show him, you know, the magic, quote, you know, the miracle of my cell phone, how I could call my father or my grandfather on FaceTime, how he could see them and talk to them, how I could check the weather. He's a farmer. How I could check the weather report and say, yeah, look at the radar. Look at how there's a storm bearing down on us. What if I showed him how he could look up all different types of irrigation techniques and equipment, and you know, they would think this is a miracle. What the heck is this device that you can do almost anything on, right? I mean, that's what they would think. But we know it's not a miracle. It came over many, many years and man hours of hard labor, discovery, focus, concentration, hard work. But this stuff all makes sense to us now. What are the things in the future that if we saw them now, we would think, oh, that's impossible, or that's a miracle that you can do that? Anti-gravity type devices or teleportation or whatever. We might think, oh, that's not possible. Or if it is, it's a miracle. It's a mystery. No one really knows. Really? We're going to find out a lot. And that's probably why, as a matter of fact, the Christ said, hey, all the things that I've done, you're going to do and even more. He knew. So once you see that element working that you can't understand or necessarily explain, you know it's for real and there's a purpose and that it's the real deal. So now you realize that you can do something. It started as a small seed, as listening to people and just helping them. And now you're advancing. So there's different modalities. Matter of fact, you know, hands-on modalities like Reiki, craniosacral therapy, acupuncture, and I can't think of the foot one right now. What's the foot one? Anyways, it'll come to me after I'm done. So there's all these different modalities. It's interesting how most of them are related to touch in some shape or form. And they also revolve around energy. If you're looking at Reiki, it's energy. Acupuncture, energy. Even massage. People who give massage hands-on. It really, you can tell when you ever have you ever got a good massage therapist and you could just feel the goodness from them? And that's a beautiful thing. So that's energy. So that's where we go when we realize that we can do something. We can do something with our life. Life is not just about, if all life is eating, sleeping, going to work, having fun, watching a movie, drinking, having sex, so on and so forth. If that's all it is, and I know some of you are like, hey, I could go for, okay, I get, yeah. But if that's all it is, if it's just input, it becomes kind of shallow after a while. I mean, how much can the human mind and heart and body consume before it's kind of bloated? It really is true that it's better to give than it is to receive, in the sense of, this is what I find, okay? And this is one of the reasons why I do this podcast. When I'm out there in the mode of giving and doing things for other people, I find I get energy. Do you want to heal yourself? Start working on healing other people. This is a powerful secret in life. Are you depressed, or are you saddened by some sort of loss? Go help other people who've had loss. You will find that you get help too. There was a man by the name of Sundar Singh, and He was a Sikh who at one point was traveling through the Himalayas, and he was high in the Himalayan mountains, and unfortunately a snowstorm came upon him. And he was thinking, this is it. I'm going to freeze to death. Have you ever had that feeling? Like, I've had it when I was out in big waves where I'm like, oh no, I'm going to see a huge set on the horizon. And I'm like, okay, this is it. I'm going to die. I had that when I was in Hawaii more than once, but this is what this guy's thinking. He's thinking, oh, this is it. I'm up high in the Himalayas, the Himalayas as they call it, and snowstorm's on its way in. I'm dead. Well, it started to snow and he wasn't doing good. And then he saw an interesting sight. He saw, I shouldn't say interesting, but a sad sight. He saw a man who was worse off than him, unfortunately. So what did he do? He thought, well, this guy's not doing good. He's not moving. Let me pick him up. And who knows? Maybe I can help him. So he picks up this guy and carries him. Well, amazingly, Sundar Singh was able to get to safety, to warmth, to a place to recover. And as he was pondering what happened during that snowstorm, that still small voice said to him, Sundar, when you were about to die on the mountaintop, when the snow was coming down, you saw that man who was worse off than you, and you picked him up and put him over your shoulder. And in so doing, you generated heat that kept you alive. So when you were saving that man's life, you essentially saved your own. This is very powerful. I have found that when you're in a bad place, the worst thing you could do, whether it's emotional pain, physical pain, whatever, the worst thing you could do is focus and revel in your own misery and pain. The best thing you could do, and this depends on how bad it is. Obviously, if you're physically ill, it's hard when you have a fever to get up, you have to rest. But, so within reason, one of the most important things to realize is attitude and helping other people is a sense of your own salvation. I love that. I've also realized that in the realm of healing, that one of the things that's really important is to spread out your wings in as many venues as you can. I have found that writing has been a powerful thing for me, not only for my own sanity and wholeness. That's why many people journal, right? So writing is very powerful, but you can help a person. You can catch a fish for a person, but when you teach someone to catch a fish, then you've really done something good. And I kind of liken writing to that. When you help someone one-on-one, that's great. And I think that's a great thing, and that's never going to end. But if you can learn things yourself and you can get out there and broadcast that, you can write, you can have a live stream podcast, you can have a book club where you go through this book and you could invite the people that need the lessons and the information and the experience of going through that book as a community. Community is so important. Writing is so important. Spreading your wings and exercising the gifts for the greater good. Be a wise investor in that sense. And then also remember, and this is really important, remember that healing is more than just a technique. So you can get in, I would recommend, if you feel you have a calling, definitely get into the techniques. Learn energy work, learn Reiki, learn acupuncture, learn one of these modalities that you feel called to do. But also remember that healing itself is like a frequency, and that frequency is kindness, loving kindness, it's mercy. So much can be brought to someone through that energetic practice. That really is, we talk about Reiki, but truth be told, if you've ever been around a nurse or a doctor who is compassionate and gives you a prescription, but you can tell they really care about you, what does that do for you? Their confidence that you're going to get well, that prescription, and then, that mercy. It's a frequency. And that's the thing. We don't need to be a licensed doctor to be kind to someone, to listen, to pat him on the back, to give him a hug heart to heart. So that's the frequency of healing. We can get in that frequency, and really, this is a fascinating thing. I read a quote from Swami Yogananda the other day, and he said, be in a spiritual place in such a way that when you enter a room, the divine fragrance that's part of your life will just go out into that room and touch people. I don't think the idea is so much that you want the kudos for being some sort of spiritual giant. The idea is you can actually transmit blessings based on your own life, your own practice. That's the gist of this live stream today. It's not so much, do you have faith that you can move mountains? That's been talked about a lot, and there's other people that are more qualified to tackle that. What I'm qualified to tackle is what I've learned from other people and what I practice. And what I've learned is that healing is a frequency. It's a frequency of love. It's a frequency of kindness. It's a frequency of understanding, and it's a frequency of mercy. And so you tune into that, and you find you just kind of magically get guided. You get guided. You know what to say. You know what to do. And you know what happens? You know in the end that it wasn't just you. You know that you were a partner in that process. And when you know, okay, this is when you know that it's happened and you've done it right, is when people are more amazed about you than they should be. And you know it. You know it. It's like something happened through you, folks. That's what this is all about. It's about tuning into that frequency and something happening through you, because this divine parent, this everlasting, never-ending, ultra merciful, loving kindness wants to come through you. It's looking for it's like a current that's looking for a wire, a channel, a pipe, so to speak. It's looking for a way in. It can do it without you, but for some reason or other, it loves to work through people. The cosmic beloved loves to shine the loving rays of healing, kindness, and mercy and goodness through other people. I don't know why that is, but that's the way it is. It's a gift, really. It's a gift. And when you figure it out, you found something about the higher world, that place. You could call, there's so many different terms for it, right? But you know what I'm talking about. It's that higher place. It's here. It's not here as much as I'd like to see it, but it's here, and you will find it more in your personal practice when you're pursuing it, or you're just being still and letting it overwhelm you and come over you. But to heal is really divine. So the beautiful thing about engaging on this path of becoming healer, it's not so much like, and when I read the title, I thought, gosh, really? How to become a healer? I know that kind of caters to the ego a little bit. I know that. I'm willing to throw some curveballs out there, but it's not about, look, something happened once when I was involved in this church, and it was a very powerful time, and a lot of things were happening. And I knew at this one moment, I knew I got tapped. I was in this upper room, and it was a place where a lot of people were coming during a rough time. It was kind of like the times we're going through now. It was during the Great Recession. It was a tough time. And, a lot of people experienced financial hardship, and a lot of people experienced diseases, and people lost their jobs and their houses and their spouses and all these things. I remember I got tapped one day. I got to tell you this story because this is just, I still can't even believe I was part of it. I was in this room, and there were all these people laboring. There was this one lady, and she was there. Almost every person who came in that room, they needed help. They needed help desperately. And it was kind of like so many people came in and told the same story. Like, I don't know where else to go. I went to the doctors, and they did this. I did surgery. I'm going to, people were saying literally, I have cancer. I'm stage 4 cancer. I'm going to die. People would come to this room when they were rock bottom, and they didn't know where else to turn. I've met people who were so left brain, sort of right, body, sort of like engineering types who were like, you know what, I tried everything. I tried every procedure. I don't believe in this hokey stuff, but I'm open. At this point, I'll try anything. Ran to a lot of people like that. So there was this lady there. This particular day, I was not in the best of moods. It happens sometimes, right? So I wasn't in a good mood. All these people were laboring over her. They were saying prayers, and they had their hands on her, and they were really trying. In that modality, in the Christian churches, there was a lot of, praying to God. Some people were raising their voices and shouting in Jesus' name and things like that. And I was kind of over there, I wasn't in the best of moods, but I just I don't know what it was. This is how it happens. This is how, it's kind of like the movie, City of Angels, when Meg Ryan's character is dying in the end and Nicolas Cage is next to her as, the angel who came down to earth to be with her. She realized, oh my gosh, there's people here. Is this how it happens? And then he's like, this is how it happens. And I'm telling you right now, this person wasn't going to die, but I got tapped, and this is how it happens. You just know. I just saw these people banging their heads against the wall, praying and praying and praying for this lady, doing everything they could to give her relief. I don't even really know, to be honest with you, I wasn't even there when she walked in, so I didn't know what her problem was, but I knew I was part of the solution. So I'm not in the best of moods, and I felt the most amazing, this will happen sometimes when you know that you've been tapped. I started to, sometimes you feel these little physical signs. So I wasn't in a good mood. I was sitting on this couch and I was reading, and I was like, I don't want to have nothing to do with that over there. And the bottom eyelashes, the tops are always, for you ladies who, do the eyelashes, that the bottom ones are pretty thin, right? So I'm sitting over there, and I felt this, it almost felt like someone took their finger and started to gently massage my bottom eyelash on one of my eyes. And I was like, I knew what it was, but I was still kind of like, hey, what the heck? This invasion of my privacy, back off. So I felt this feeling. And you know what I totally knew what that meant at the time. Cause I was like, I was already starting to argue. Like, I'm not going to go over there. Those people, there's plenty of people over there. They can do the job. What am I going to do anyways? And I felt that little feeling across the bottom of my eyelash, which is kind of like a mom going, oh, Chris. That's what that was like. And it went on for a while. And then I was like, fine. I knew I was being tapped. So I went over there. And it was the most amazing thing. I came up from behind this person. They couldn't see me coming. And I'd simply just laid both of my hands on her shoulders. And it was like, if you've ever seen those little toys we had as kids, where they were like the plastic toys where you push the bottom and there was a string, and you had this like little like stick type figure, and if you push the button on the bottom, the stick figure would sort of weaken and kind of do all those moves. Well, it was kind of like that. I came up and put my hands on her, and it was like some massive amount of energy and power, Holy Ghost, whatever you want to call it, Kundalini Shakti, it came upon her. And everyone knew it was coming, so they grabbed her and laid her down. Then I pulled the leader of the group aside, and this is what came to me. So I got tapped. I did that. I knew it was going to happen. And then I was knowing something else. I was getting this message that you need to make sure that she can't find you, this person who just got touched, because what happened to her was so powerful. I was told, you have to make sure she can't find you, because she's going to think you're some sort of, someone to be put on a pedestal. So I pulled the leader aside and I said, look, I'm going into that other room over there. So when she comes to you afterwards, when she comes back to this earth, because she's somewhere else right now, when she comes back to this earth, she's going to say to you, who did that and where is he? And then I told her, don't tell her where I am and don't tell her my name. So I went and hid out. And finally, I got tapped again. The all clear came. Went back into the room, just minding my own business. That person who was leading the group came up to me and said, it was so interesting that you said that, because she came up to me afterwards and said, who was that? What was his name? And where is he? You know, sometimes you don't need to know how something is going to come about. That's the thing about healing that I think is very important. You know, there are times when you're going to talk to someone about lifestyle and you will see certain practices and certain mindsets that create certain dilemmas, problems, illnesses, etc. But on these more, I don't want to say miraculous, but you know, these more highfalutin, powerful, energetic surges, you don't always have to know. You don't have to know how their ankle's going to heal or how their broken heart or how all these things are going to, you know, it might just be they get this surge of divine love that is so powerful they're never the same again. And they look at their problem completely different. You know, we're all going to die. The best gift you could be given is not to just be granted 5 more years. The best gift you could be given is to know that you are a soul essence of divine origin and that you can never die. That's the best gift you can have. We always focus on these little nitty-gritty healing things, and that's okay, but we have to know the bigger picture. And when you are involved in healing, you're functioning in that higher world. Healing is of divine origin. It was set up by the divine. The processes in the body, the immune system, the natural process of healing, it's all set up by the divine. When you're a participant in an energetic surge or some sort of powerful moment, it doesn't get much better than that. It doesn't get much better to be tapped by the universe and to step up to the plate. All you have to do is swing the bat. You can even close your eyes. Because when it comes down to this kind of pitcher, the pitcher on the mound is your dad. The catcher is your mom. The first baseman is your brother. It's okay. You can close your eyes and swing. It's just going to happen. Matter of fact, sometimes it's better to do it that way, isn't it? That way you don't get so much in your head and get involved. Healing. Healing's for everybody that feels they're not trapped in their own self. Healing is for everyone who has an empathic heart to see the best that life can offer, that God can offer, that humanity can offer for a person. Healing is all around us. It's like a frequency. It's a state of mind, a state of being. What an honor it is to be walking this rock that is spinning around the sun. That is our sun is rotating in the Milky Way galaxy. What an honor it is to be walking on this rock and to be able to see people with compassion. Hey, that's what it's all about. If we don't have compassion for a fellow man, I mean, you may not be the mamby-pamby sort of feeling kind of person, but even you could be potentially used in a situation to better someone's life. And I guarantee you, no matter where you come from, empath or not, highly sensitive person or totally dry and scientific, when something like this happens through you, to you, through you, you're never the same again. It's all around us. It's time to play ball. It's time to get in the game. It's time to step up to the plate and say, you know what? I might strike out. And I can laugh at myself if I do. Because my dad's the pitcher, my mom's the catcher. These are all my relatives, right? We're all cut from the same cloth. Hey, I am so thankful that you guys have tuned in to Streams of Light today. Do me a favor. Like the podcast, put a chat up there, send me a text, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. I want to get the word out that this thing called life is beautiful and that it's a game. It's a game of life. Let's get in there and play it. Thank you so much for tuning in today, for listening, giving me an open ear and an open heart. Till next time, hang in there, do your healing work, and get with the ascension. I'm Chris Anthony. This is Streams of Light. We'll see you next time.